Zoom 2 of 8. PowerPoint slideshow. Revised disability. Slideshow. Slide 1. Disability. Disability inclusive editable.
Good morning, everybody. This is a presentation about disability and inclusive pedagogy in initial EFL teacher training, a systematic literature review.
Topic Effendi, Alan Thurston, Alison Mackenzie.
So the authors are myself, Tawfiq Effendi, and my first supervisor, Professor Alan Thurston, and then my second supervisor, Professor Alison Mackenzie. This is my first review of my PhD at Queen's University Belfast, and this is the presentation slides I delivered in the first postgraduate symposium of the Center of Inclusion, Transformation and Equality, School of Social Sciences, Education and Social Work, Queen's University Belfast, held on the 29th of May 2024. So my presentation at that time was not recorded, and for the benefit of the findings of this review, I'm now recording a brief presentation of what I discovered from my first systematic literature review.
FD01 copies. Slideshow. Slide 2. Outline. Outline introduction method findings conclusion.
There will be 4 main points in my presentation: the introduction, methods, findings, and conclusion.
HTTPS.
And this is the link if you would like to read the full paper, published on the 23rd of March in International Journal of Educational Research Open, as Elsevier Scopus Index Journal.
Introduction 1 Resize AL. 2018. Even the language is not.
To begin with, I would like to draw your attention to these excerpts, statements by EFL teachers who have had experience in teaching inclusive classrooms. Despite their experience, their attitudes towards the inclusion of disabled students remain less positive.
It never happened to me before to use this list, even though language is not a critical skill for people.
One mentioned that language skills may not be important for disabled learners, and another one mentioned that it could be a waste of time to prepare a lesson only for one student. You can see what perspectives are in power, what dominant views are operating. Ableist and disableist perspectives are evident in the minds of EFL teachers.
Introduction to There is using English as a foreign language. EFL. Teachers understand.
The state of research warns us that there's a problem in EFL teacher professionalism.
Inclusive practices in EFL classrooms are reported to be difficult.
Inclusive practices in EFL classrooms are reported to be difficult and even impractical. This is the general impression of many studies in EFL inclusive classes. Many EFL teachers demonstrate positive attitudes theoretically. Theoretically, they welcome disabled students into regular classes, but practically, they favor non-disabled students. They're worried that the presence of disabled students would cause difficulties, would cause less attention and less motivation to non-disabled students.
Inclusive practices in EFL class. Inclusive practices in EFL class. Introduction 3. One major barrier to successful inclusion, as reported above, is a lack of understanding.
This problem drove me to examine how training teachers of EFL understand disability and inclusive pedagogy.
Research questions 1. What do the state of research tell us about EFL?
So here are the questions that I tried to address. The main question was, how do the state of research tell us about EFL pre-service teachers' understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy? To help me answer the big question, I listed a few sub-questions to know the context, methodological approaches, to draw a picture of the major findings of the relevant studies, and finally, to see how they are related to EFL pre-service teachers' understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy. I was thinking that I may not get direct answer to my main question. So all these related questions would help me to finally address the main question.
Methods research British Education Index. Education.
We selected 5 major databases in education. And then I had some experiments of exploring the databases, tried to be familiar with the whole process, and then managed to finalize the search string and generated 508 relevant studies, out of which only 6 studies met the eligibility criteria.
Key search terms were developed through an iterative process. The searches revealed 508 studies across the 5 data criteria. 1. In English. 2. Between.
So the first of this eligibility criteria has to be in English, of course, and then published within 2002 and 2022. Yeah, so for 2 decades. In inclusive EFL settings related to EFL pre-service teachers' understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy, and then peer-reviewed research articles.
2 collaborative screening steps were conducted.
So we had 2 steps of collaborative screening process. The first one was based on the title and abstract, and then the second one was based on the full article.
Data charted included. First author. Date. Country.
We did data charting for demographic information, and then came up with 7 codes, which eventually transformed into themes.
Findings 1. Question 1. In what context the studies were conducted?
So here's what I found.
Findings 1. Question 1. In what published in the past 5 years, conducted in Europe.
Most studies meeting the criteria were conducted in the global north and 2 in the Middle East, but none in the global south. Mostly involved female university researchers and female participants, who are active students and also teachers, in-service teachers. However, most of the studies did not incorporate disability theory as the guiding framework. There could have been more useful.
Question 2. What methodology, published in the past 5 years, conducted in Europe, N4, and Middle East, N2, involving mostly female university researchers and participants, representing views of diverse EFL pre-service teachers, absence of disability theory, post-intervention studies, N3.
And most of the studies were post-intervention research. So they did an intervention and then they assessed how it went. 2 other studies were simply survey without having to do with any intervention, any class treatment. And one was qualitative, based on the learning and teaching process.
Question 2. What methodological approaches were used? Mixed method, N3, quantitative, N2, and qualitative, N1. Use of questionnaire, N6, online administration, N3.
Yeah, most of the studies were mixed methods, and interestingly, survey was the common technique to collect the data for either quantitative or also qualitative data. Uniquely, no studies implemented observation to really see how trainee teachers could demonstrate their teaching in an inclusive setting.
Question 3. What were their findings?
And then the findings of most studies were divided into 7 themes.
Competence, majority feeling competent.
First one was competence.
Attitudes, competence, majority feeling competent to include disabled students in the EFL classroom.
Yeah, majority of the research participants demonstrated the feeling of incompetent in including disabled students in their future classrooms.
Attitudes, participants show neutral and positive competence, majority feeling attitudes, participants show neutral and positive attitudes theoretically but not practically.
Attitudes. Generally, EFL pre-service teachers demonstrate positive attitudes. They welcome inclusion. They welcome disabled students in regular classrooms. However, when it comes to classroom practices, they express negative tones. They're worried about classroom management. They're worried about the achievement of non-disabled students. They get anxious about the workload.
Knowledge, participants generally have limited knowledge. A related university course would improve pre-service.
Regarding knowledge, most participants demonstrated very limited knowledge about disability and inclusive pedagogy. A relevant university course was found to help improve their knowledge, yet at the same time also improve their concerns, their worries of how to successfully conduct their teaching in their future classrooms. Because disability was seen as something negative, so they're worried that they would encounter difficulties.
Knowledge, participants generally have findings to beliefs. Related university courses were found to improve participants' beliefs
In relation to
Findings 2.
beliefs,
Beliefs. Related university courses were found to improve participants' beliefs in the necessity of inclusive practices.
yeah, most participants believe that it was necessary to implement inclusive education in EFL professionalism.
Concern. Beliefs. Related university courses were found to improve participants' beliefs in the necessity of inclusive practices.
Yet the result showed that the degree of their belief was still insufficient to be able to perform successful inclusive practices.
Concerns. Despite positive attitudes and improved knowledge and beliefs, participants have
Then
suggestions.
concerns,
Concerns. Despite positive attitudes and improved knowledge and beliefs, participants have high concerns regarding practical issues and favor non-disabled learners over the disabled.
as mentioned earlier, they had higher concerns after they attended related university courses. Their concerns even increased. They were getting more worried.
Suggestions. Participants express a strong need for well.
Of course, the most common suggestions was to have sufficient training and exposure in order to succeed in the future inclusive classrooms.
What matters? Relevant. Quality and long.
The last finding was what really matters. It is the relevance, the quality, and the long duration of teaching experience that really matters. Long teaching duration and quality do not guarantee successful practices in inclusive settings. So, trainee teachers need to have the experience of handling inclusive classrooms and guided practice so they can have more positive and correct understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy that will allow them to perform more positive and accommodating practices.
Question 4. How were the findings related to EFL pre-service teachers' understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy?
And then to answer the main question,
Disability is largely seen from a less positive.
disability was somehow still seen as something negative.
Inclusive pedagogy is disability is largely seen from a less positive view. The continuum of ableism and disableism is evident. Assumed standards, norms or abilities,
Yeah.
normative positivism in bold terms.
The continuum of ableism and disabilism was really evident. This is also true with
Inclusive pedagogy is fully
their understanding of inclusive pedagogy. Inclusive pedagogy was seen as something difficult, challenging, and worrying at the same time. We can see that there's a continuum of ableism and disabilism. Ableism is the condition where the world is seen from ableized perspective. What able-bodied people can do becomes the standard norms that eventually disables those with different nature of norms, disables those with different nature of normalcy. So ableism leads to disableism. To get away of this continuum, Bold, a professor in Hope University, suggests to offer normative positivism, which is a way out from normative positivism or ableism and non-normative negativism or disableism. let me clarify. So ableism is a condition where the world is seen from ableized perspective, whereas disableism is the consequence of the hazard of this ableism. When people only see the world from ableized perspective, then this ableism comes up. Ableism is a condition where people with different nature of norms are disabled. They're considered negative. They're considered as a burden, as a problem, as deficit. Yeah, they're using deficit model of seeing things, seeing the world. In Bolt's term, ableism is called as normative positivism. Things that are based on ableized norms are taken as positive. Whereas, the second term that Bolt offers, non-normative negativism or disableism, condition where something that are not conforming to the ableized norms are seen negative, are taken as negative.
Inclusive pedagogy is poorly understood by majority of EFL pre-service teachers.
So the way out is to see disability and inclusive pedagogy as something positive, normative, non-normative positivism. There are a wide range of norms and standards. Many of us do things differently. And inclusive pedagogy, according to Florian, focuses on individuality, which disregards the dominant view of ableized norms. Inclusive pedagogy is an approach to education which positions every learner as equally unique, and therefore every learner equally deserves for learning, advanced learning opportunities and supports. Everyone has the right for learning. Everyone has the right for education. This is inclusive pedagogy. Regardless their different backgrounds, their different characteristics, their different needs. So everyone is equal.
Inclusive pedagogy is poorly understood by majority of EFL pre-service teachers. Those with positive attitude. Conclusion: the findings in this review are indicative of a continuum of normative
Conclusion:
the findings in this review are indicative of a continuum.
The findings of this review are indicative of the continuum of ableism and disabilism.
The findings in this review are indicative of a continuum of normative positivism and non-normative negativism.
Or in Bolt's term, normative positivism and non-normative negativism. Ableism refers to normative positivism. Disabilism refers to non-normative negativism.
The standards, common norms, in the context of initial EFL teacher education scholarship are laden with ableized assumptions.
The standards,
common norms, in the context of initial EFL.
The standards, or the typical standards,
standards, common norms.
common norms
In the context of
in the
initial
context
EFL,
of initial
teacher,
EFL
education,
teacher
scholarship,
education
laden
scholarship
with
are
ableist
laden with
assumptions.
ableist assumptions. Laden
Assumptions.
with ableist assumptions, like different nature of function, different nature of ability are taken as negative. Negative terms of negative tones are evident in most studies. So disability is seen as difficult, deficit, yeah, negative terms are common.
The ableist standards, the standards, common norms in the context of initial EFL teacher education scholarship are laden with the ableist standards, i.e., the normative positivisms in the context of initial EFL teacher innovation. The ableist standards, i.e., the normative positivisms in the context of initial EFL teacher education scholarship have led to normative negativism signified by disableist perspectives. Innovational standards in initial EFL teacher education.
So innovational standards are needed. Common standards that are developed by the elite, the minority, can never accommodate different nature of individuals, in every society. Innovational standards will help everyone to be included, will help everyone to be given the opportunity to excel, to collaborate, to contribute for the betterment of the civilization. In the context of EFL classrooms, innovation standards will see disability as equally contributing. Sight loss, for example, can be seen as a gain. When there is a blind in a classroom, verbal communication is increased. The opportunity to help students improve their communicative skills is enhanced. So it is a gain rather than a loss. This is the view of innovational standards, or in bold term, non-normative positivism. We're really hoping that stakeholders, policymakers, teacher educators can have more positive understanding of disability and inclusive pedagogy. Disability is not supposed to be seen as negative. It's not supposed to be seen as a loss. It's not supposed to be seen as a deficit. Disability is supposed to be seen as more positive, as a gain. So we can see the world from a more positive lens where richer outcomes can be obtained. Welcoming more people with diverse ability will allow the society to grow, to excel, and to achieve richer outcomes. Thank you for watching. We're hoping for a better EFL teacher professionalism in the future. Goodbye.
Screen sharing meeting controls too late. Screen sharing.